Good morning, David Paul here. So I don't know where to start with this one. After last night, I made a video about how tough it was, this building a cabin business and being in the dark all the time and the rotten weather and everything. And I might have alarmed some people. Don't be alarmed. As I said to the person who phoned me, I'm trying to make a series of films that illustrate how you use ADHD as an inspiration for creativity, and how you can get yourself out of a difficult situation, say being homeless or whatever. It's kind of about self-empowerment and yeah, about empowerment and not feeling trapped and feeling that you can survive, you know, about personal survival. So I have to make bad videos as well as the good stuff. It's no good putting up sugary sweet videos about how wonderful your life is, and you're going to this or that, the other restaurant, and you're having a great time and so on, and you get loads of people following you because, oh, that's what they want to see, you know, they want to see this lovely life that they aspire to. But most people's lives just aren't like that, and if they are like that, they're not like that for long, because 5 minutes down the road you have a crisis and things are messed up. So anyway, I'm going to talk about a few things. And I'm also going to, I said that I was going to make a video about the big tree that I sawed down. So this is an alder tree. I'm going to have to use the camera the wrong way around because it doesn't have the ability to flip to forward vision. It's unfortunate that, because the forward camera is much better than the one to the face. But here goes. This here is the tree. And you will notice, if I take my earphones off there, you'll notice that it's very orangey. This happens when immediately it gets exposed to air. It produces this beautiful orangey colour. It's called an alder tree, and it grows in areas of what you call alder car, where it's very damp ground, and often the trees actually create the land themselves because the area gets silted up around them and material builds up. It happens in Norfolk a lot, but here we have them here as well at this hidden location. So I sawed the tree down, and what I did is, my method is to cut through the tree. This is not proper forestry practice, but what I do is I cut through the tree, and then I let the tree fall down on its own, because it becomes unbalanced. But I figure that if you cut right the way through, I'm going to get that in camera, if you cut right the way through to almost the front of the tree, then what happens is the hinge is definitely at the front part, so it's definitely going to fall in the direction you want it to. The unfortunate thing about that is that if you don't make a V cut, then what happens is that it tears the tree. But you may not care about that, and I don't care, because I'm needing to reduce the volume of the log before I take it out anyway. So what happened is I end up with the T snapping and producing a great big spike here, sticking up in the air, and there, over there on the ground, let me get over here, there's this, can't get it in shot. Come on. Pick it up. There. That is the big sliver of wood that has been snapped off the tree. Beautiful peachy pink colour. The problem is I don't think that it's going to retain that colour. I wish it would, but I don't think it's going to stay that colour. Let's experiment and see if it'll work. Anyway, I'll cover that over. So looking at the log, let's have another look at the tree. I have managed to get about 4 or 5 pieces out of this. Let's turn it down there. There's the log. First piece of log. Second piece. Third piece, which should be in camera shot. Yep, there it is. And so on right the way down the log to the far end. And there are about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wow, I got 6. The exact number I need is 5, including the central piece. So I've made it. And I've got 2 other extra pieces that have to be fitted in, but the main X structure of the cabin has 5 main supporting logs, and if I've managed to get that, then I've scored. So I've got it. So you can imagine, how the hell am I going to get these out of the forest? Well, as I was mourning on, I did say Mr. Newton mourning last night in my video, how the hell am I going to get these out of the forest? So let's talk Bjorn Bull Hansen style in the forest. So how am I going to get the logs out of here? Well, I've got a little trolley which I'll bring in here, and I'll get the logs onto the little trolley and haul them out. But this is going to be the limit of my physical strength. So I was hoping that I would be able to dry these logs a bit, but all it's doing is it's just raining all the time, and so the logs are not drying. However, I only cut these up yesterday, and hopefully there will be a break in the weather and they will start to dry. If you leave the bark on, that's a good absorber of sunlight, which helps to kind of solar dry the logs. We're not concerned about cabinet making here. We're not trying to season these logs like you would if you were going to be a furniture maker. So we just got to dry them. If they got cracks, splits and shakes, then it doesn't matter. We just got to get them dry, and so long as they're substantially dry enough to be able to take them out of the forest, then we scored. So that's my hope, is that I managed to reduce the weight a bit. But I'm very eager to get my first log out of here, which is log number 2, which is a little bit slimmer than this big fat one that I'm sitting on, and that will be the central post. And by taking that out, it'll give me something to get working on. Now, I still, as I said last night, I've still got lots of digging left to do, which I can now do today because it stopped raining for a little while. I will put in about a half an hour or an hour of digging, and then I'll head off to the library, do some work, and charge my batteries, and then come back and carry on again. And as we do it, this is how it goes. This is how we work forward. Years ago, around about 2008, I got into a financial crisis because my wife at the time encouraged me to take early retirement so I could go and buy a banana plantation in the Philippines, and it seemed like a good idea. So I take the early retirement, and we buy the banana plantation. It never yields a damn thing, you know. Financially, that's been a pain in the neck, and we've never managed to make any money off it, although there is the value of the land, which is realizable. When the hell we'll ever sell that, I don't know. So anyway, I did that, and as a consequence of taking the early retirement out of that job, taking voluntary redundancy, I went from a wage of £28,000 at the time, which is really good money, down to like something like £13,000, because I had to go and get another job, and I got a job as a school technician in Norfolk, and I was unable to afford any accommodation, And I was living on a boat at the time, and I couldn't take Bayang Magilu, the boat that I've made videos about in this channel. And I was unable to get that down to Norfolk because the waterways are not suited to that sort of thing. And it's not Norfolk. You would think it would be a good place to live on a boat. It's not. The Canal and River Trust waterways are basically it as far as living on boats in the UK. So I didn't have that sussed at the time, but now I do. So I was travelling over there every day, and that was costing me a fortune in diesel, and I was always terrified of being late, and man, it was like such a stressful life. And then I saw fishermen fishing by the canal near to my boat, and I spoke to him the next day, and I said, "Well, you're not cold there, you know?" And he said, "No, I've got all the gear, man. I'm great here, and if the bell goes, then I get up and catch the fish." Crazy sort of thing to do, but that's what they do here. They catch fish and then throw them back. I don't understand that. It's called angling, and most cultures in the world don't understand it, except the British. But anyway, whatever floats your boat, as they say. So this guy, he said he was fine, so I got the idea that maybe I could do that. I could take my car over there and sleep in the car. So I did that for a while, and after a while I got a tap on the window by the police, and I thought, oh man, I don't want to get into an embarrassing situation because I'm working in a school, and I don't want them to know that I'm having to stay in the car. And so then I got the idea I'll live in the forest. So I started living in the forest, and I'd take a couple of hot water bottles back with me, stay there. The water bottles were still warm in the morning, and I'd be able to have a shower, went to work, and I carried on like this for about a year. And I did a winter in the forest, and that's how I learnt that this is possible and that you can do it. That was my first experience with it. So now I find myself this financial crisis now. It's always at a time of financial crisis for the nation. So try not to make life-changing decisions that put you into positions of instability at times of economic crisis, or bear in mind that an economic crisis may come along. So don't start doing things like you. Although now I can never be in a crisis because I have pension incomes, and I'm in a better position than a lot of people because I can move around, and I'm not. If this cabin was to burn down or whatever, you know, get wrecked or something happened to it, I'd just go and build another one, you know, or go somewhere else. And in fact, I might enjoy going somewhere else, build another one. And I may, in Portugal, I may buy some land and build one of these cabins as just a fun enterprise, because I no longer depend on it. But as I say, try and avoid allowing your life to get unstable, and try to avoid systems which make you a slave. What do I mean by that? Well, one time I left that situation. I came to London, and I got a job eventually in a really good school, working as a technician, and then I went back into teaching, which I had done years ago, and then things really took off for me. But one time I was going along to the shop because I'd been given a load of stuff to buy for the staff at this shop. So I'm walking out the back of the school, and this deputy head, who hadn't been at the school long, and he was one of the assistant heads, they call them, because there are a number of them. There's a deputy and then a number of assistants. So this assistant head pulls up in his car, and it's a beautiful 4x4 car, really luxurious thing. And I got in the car, and it was great. And I looked at him and I thought, on the face of it, you the man. Like, you've got all the things, you know, the possessions and so on, and you look like you're doing good in life. And we bombed down the road because this thing could move. And as we bombed down the road, I thought, an idea came into my head. I thought, do you own this car, or does this car own you? In other words, have you paid it off, or is it on an agreement, you know, like a hire purchase agreement, in which case you're having to feed this monster? It's bigger than you really need. It's a status symbol. He didn't need a 4x4 car in the middle of London. So it was a gas guzzler. And we've had experiences of gas prices going through the roof. If he'd have bought a more sensible car, it was the thing that provided the utility, that, as my son would say, for the least amount of money, then he wouldn't have been a slave to it, you know. So this is a tough school, and I thought, well, you're going to have to suck it up and stay at this school, carry on in this job, but you're committed to this driving lifestyle, or you've got to get a better job or whatever. So in other words, you're in the rat race, you know, you're in the rat race. And I'm not. I can walk away from things. So that's kind of was a lesson to me, that. So anyway, at the time I was in Norfolk, I started watching videos on YouTube about the tiny house movement. And amongst all of these people, two people stood out. And one of them is a guy called Lamar Alexander. Lamar Alexander he has a song he wrote about it. Like, you can go onto his channel. It's called Solar House. No, Solar Cabin, sorry. Solar Cabin, and his name is Lamar Alexander, and I followed him. And that was a man that wanted to cut his own furrow in life. He wanted to do things his own way. He was his own man. There ain't no one like me, as the song said. I am my own man. There ain't no one like me. And I learned a lot from him. And what I learned was that you could have a different kind of life. You could have a life where the things that they tell us we think we need don't own us anymore. They don't own us. So we're free. Nobody's ever 100% free, but you can create substantial amounts of autonomy, personal agency, which is like the opposite of feeling depressed. You can create substantial amounts of this by not buying into the system, not buying the deal. I look at houses that people live in the UK, and they think they're clever, man. They've got like this house, and wow, look at my house, look at my flat that I've got in the UK. I only paid £500,000 for it or whatever. And I think, you know, for that kind of money down in Portugal, I could buy an entire farm with a huge farmhouse and have a very luxurious life and an income and everything. And Portugal's not even the start of it. There are other countries out there, like, for example, Chile, which is one of them that attracts me at the minute. Although I'm not going to go there. My future is committed to Portugal and the Philippines. So just, you know, think of things that way. Think of not buying into the system. So anyway, I watched Lamar Alexander, and along with that series of videos, up popped a guy called Dick Dietrichson. And Dick Dietrichson, I'm going to sing your praises, Dick. Dick was an inspiration to me, and a moral inspiration as well. So we live in a weird world these days, you know. He'd probably sue me for saying he's a nice guy, you know, but here goes, you know. There are things I really don't like in life, and there are things I really hate. And one of the things I really like is Dick Dietrichson. So we've had this thing going on messages that I put on his thing. I'll tell you why in a minute. Dick Dietrichson seemed to have a genuine concern for people less fortunate in life. And I thought that's the kind of a person you need to be. You need to be like Dick Dietrichson. You need to be the change that you want to, yeah, as I say, be the change that you want to bring about, you know. So he did a video on a thing called a Hick Show, which was the most minimum kind of a cabin you could build. It was rather coffin-like with a window at one end and so on, and you could push it around in a cart. Now, as much as you might laugh at this, you know, and I don't know, if things are going okay for you, you got an apartment, you're paying rent, you got a job, everything's working for you. Yes, it is, until the crisis comes along. And what is your plan B, you know, if the crisis comes along? So people may scoff at some of the things that he did, but these are practical ideas of how to build your own home and be empowered. And another guy, Peter King, on Stuck in Vermont. Although I kind of agree with Peter King that the tiny houses he was making, because he's been asked to do them, they weren't his cup of tea, because there are far more interesting and diverse ways of living other than these boxes that people want to make. So anyway, this brings me to a comment that I put on Dick Dietrichson's channel. I must buy a tripod because it's hard work holding this thing up. And so I put a comment on Dick Dietrichson's channel. He was looking at some cabins. They were like glamping homes, you know, that you could go and stay in, and expensive architect things. And I mentioned, well, I said that I hated them, and he got back, said, well, I would paint them a bit different or whatever, but I think hate is too strong a word. So I thought I would elaborate on that point. So I sent him a message back, and I said, you know, what I thought of him and what I thought of his channel, and I really liked it. And I said I'd like to take the opportunity to double down and say I do hate these things. So what I hate is that when I was working in London, I was working in an architect's, a Zaha Hadid building. And at first you go in there and it's all straight lines and very kind of zen-like and bare and minimalist and so on. And it's not the way most people live. It's not a human sort of, how can I put it? It's just not, it's not a comfortable thing for human beings to be in. It's exciting for a while, but I worked at that school for 5.5 years, and after a while it really begins to grate on you. All these straight lines all over the place. I used to call it Starfleet Academy because it kind of looks like a Evelyn Grace Academy. So I didn't like her architecture. I like Norman Foster's, who's a bit more organic, things like the Gherkin. And I think it's something to do with all of the sharp edges and straight lines. There were so many sharp edges in that school. The handrail was so machined that the brackets on it would actually lacerate your hands. So I would have run a file over them, but what they did is they put duct tape around them to protect your hands, and that's bad when you've gone that far. So I don't like all these straight lines that the architects are doing. I prefer more organic shapes, or even shapes, even if they are standard kind of structures, if they're made from more natural materials, I think that is psychologically better for human beings. I think this type of architecture, which is detached from nature, is very, very bad for human beings. I think it's actually making us mentally ill. So the incorporation of nature into architecture, and some of that's happening now. So that's why I didn't like those cabins, and that's why I like the work of Dick Dietrichson. So anyway, I want to refer you to some other things that you can look at. Take a look at a woman called Kirsten Dirksen. She does very, very professional videos, and the general theme of her videos is she likes to look at the diverse ways that people live. You've got people living in caves, living in tree houses, like oh god, I can't remember his name. It'll come back. The largest tree house in the world, supported by Gatling he's called, supported by 13 trees, making a resort, something rather like I'd like to do in Portugal. So that's Kirsten Dirksen, Dick Dietrichson. Have a look at that, and also take a look at Solar Cabin with Lamar Alexander. And there are lots of other things like tiny house listings, but the problem with the tiny house movement, as I see it, is it's being invaded by people who are trying to make a buck out of it, and they're building a house. I think an important thing with this tiny house thing is to build the thing yourself, because then all you have done, if you go and purchase the thing, is that you've bought into the system yet again. The thing still owns you, but you just bought in it at a lower price. And this is kind of an application that the system is imposing on you. It's called shrinkflation. So if you want to inflate the prices of things, and you think, oh, they're not gonna take this, are they? They're gonna rebel at this. So what you do is you make the chocolate bar, the candy bar, you make it smaller. So you shrink the opportunities for the people. So you cut back on resources for the people. So they have to drive smaller cars, whether they like it or not. Whether that's the reality, the resource reality of what's available or not. You just manipulate the market. So what's happened with the tiny house movement is you've got a lot of people looking at it as an alternative, and they're buying an expensive tiny house for like thousands of dollars and dragging this thing around, when they could have built the thing for a few $100s. And they're still in the system because they never learnt the skills, because this system, this way of living, teaches you things. It teaches you to be, if nothing else, it teaches you to be observant, to observe resources around you and to see things differently. To see, for example, a pile of pallets as a resource, how you might repurpose them. So anyway, big shout out for Dick Dietrichson. Watch Dick Dietrichson and you will learn a lot. A lot of it is fun stuff, but basically the fact that you can do these things, he buys some land and he builds things on it, and the fact that you can buy the land, because if you're buying a place with a house already built, you're buying into the system. You're buying somebody else's work, and you're paying. You're diminishing your own resource. So there you go. I looked really rough last night. I don't look so bad now. Here's a quote from Austin Powers. The fat guy in a movie, he says, he loses a load of weight. He says, I've lost a load of weight. He's fat bastard, he's called. So I lost a load of weight, but my face looks like a vagina. I looked, so I thought about that issue last night. You know, when you're feeling miserable and you still think about something funny. So I thought about that very issue, and I looked at my face and I thought, my face looks like a vagina, because it's the middle of the night and you're feeling tired and whatnot. There you are. I got my answer made on today, so I'll leave it at that. Atilago, makita tayo sa kana. See you later. Jesus be with you. Don't let them grind you down.